For update on Israel and Hamas for Motima Bowudum as see a case akufan semibri ediabano. Update wo and say ye papa and I say papa udi Israel and nemu see a case or prime minister IFN Netanyahu eba bontin ebedin komo kakra echeche nsemu edichire Israelis for no and the crop potia esi na utie ni kasa ene nsemu anu wo kan utimse na arohwa hye mu yi pa na ahye brutal na ohye Israel for ebo eka asem bi ewo video ya mebo ede akire mu efiri ho no ana afi so Palestine for so panyini ba kon so kwotena ase kwokire ni nsemu ade crop patinti a wo hu ni se de asiye no Israel for na akwo so no ono so ekwakire the side of the story mu ede kire nkofo kwana nkofo mebe na ebusa se Ekuonaba ede na asi ama santokwai asori ama nipakum ni sa no manomai ekoso no nti full video yi na mbebo akire we ade kropotin sinti ama sa ansem we nyina akoso no video ni nsi na wohu de kofa we nyina ebaye na Israel for IDF for so panyin so akasa o kasa na me say enra en wol disa video yi ba abonten e di update ebeto abonten sei ni eni ade a ebesi ewo Israel ho yedi kan ko tie asem a Prime Minister Netanyahu edi tudwa emra na oni Israelis for di nkomo time of Hamas for bebuwura mu no yintinsemo a odi etudwa mra.
אזרחי ישראל היקרים, כוחות חמאס פלשו הבוקר לשטח ישראל בבוקרו של יום חג, שבת, ורצחו אזרחים תמימים, ילדים וקשישים. החמאס פתח במלחמה אכזרית ומרושעת. אנחנו ננצח במלחמה הזאת, אבל המחיר כבד מנשוא. זהו יום קשה ביותר לכולנו. חמאס רוצה לרצוח את כולנו. זה אויב שרוצח ילדים ואימהות בבתים שלהם, במיטות שלהם. אויב שחוטף קשישים, ילדים, נערות. רוצחים שטובחים ושוחטים באזרחינו, בילדינו, שבסך הכל יצאו לבלות בחג. מה שקרה היום לא נראה בישראל. ואני אדאג שזה לא יקרה יותר. הממשלה כולה מתייצבת מאחורי ההחלטה הזאת. צה"ל יפעיל מיד את כל עוצמתו כדי להשמיד את יכולות חמאס. נכה בהם עד חורמה וננקום בעוצמה על היום השחור הזה שהם עוללו למדינת ישראל ולאזרחיה. כפי שאמר ביאליק, נקמת דם ילד קטן עוד לא ברא השטן. את כל המקומות שהחמאס נערך בהם, של עיר הרשע הזאת, כל המקומות שהחמאס מסתתר בהם, פועל מתוכם, נהפוך אותם לאיי חורבות. אני אומר לתושבי עזה, צאו משם עכשיו, כי אנחנו נפעל בכל מקום ובכל העוצמה. בשעה זו מתארים כוחות צה"ל את אחרוני היישובים ממחבלים. הם עוברים יישוב, בית, ומחזירים את השליטה לידינו. אני שולח חיבוק ותנחומים מעומק הלב למשפחות השכולות שיקיריהן נרצחו היום בדם קר ובאכזריות אין קץ. כולנו מתפללים גם לשלום הפצועים ולכל מי שמוחזק כבני ערובה. אני אומר לחמאס, אתם אחראים לשלומם. ישראל תבוא חשבון עם כל מי שיפגע בסערה אחת מראשם. אני פונה מכאן לתושבי הדרום. כולנו ניצבים לצדכם. כולנו גאים בכם, שעמדתם בגבורה, שנלחמתם. לחיילי צה"ל האהובים שלנו, לשוטרים, לאנשי הביטחון. זכרו שאתם ממשיכים את שושלת הגיבורים של עם ישראל, של יהושע בן נון, יהודה המכבי, גיבורי תש"ח, גיבורי כל מלחמות ישראל. אתם נלחמים עכשיו למען הבית של כולנו, למען העתיד של כולנו. כולנו איתכם, כולנו אוהבים אתכם, כולנו מצדיעים לכם. לצוותי הרפואה וההצלה ולמתנדבים הרבים שהתייצבו היום בעוצמה בשורה ארוכה של מקומות, עם ישראל מצדיע לכם. בכוח הרוח שלכם אנחנו נגבר על אויבינו. שוחחתי היום לפני שעות אחדות עם הנשיא ביידן ועם מנהיגי מדינות העולם כדי להבטיח את חופש הפעולה של ישראל להמשך המערכה. אני מודה לנשיא ביידן על דבריו הברורים והחזקים. אני מודה לנשיא צרפת, לראש ממשלת בריטניה ולמנהיגים רבים אחרים על תמיכתם הבלתי מסויגת בישראל. אני פונה עכשיו לכל אזרחי ישראל. אנחנו ניצבים יחד במערכה. המלחמה הזאת תיקח זמן. היא תהיה קשה. ימים מאתגרים עוד לפנינו. אבל אני יכול להבטיח דבר אחד. בעזרת השם, בעזרת הכוחות המשותפים של כולנו, בעזרת אמונתנו בנצח ישראל, אנחנו ננצח.
asɛm sei ana ɛyɛ prime minister ɛde to dwa mmra ɛyɛ ɔte sɛ sei ne sei na asi wɔ ne kurom a ɛwɔ so bɛyi ne nkɔɔfoɔ asotire no na ɔkasa wieɛ no ana CNN foɔ nso kɔyɛ ɛyɛ friends Palestine foɔ nso ɔpanyini baako interview na ɔno nso de nsɛm bi atu dwa na yɛntie nsɛm ɔno nso ɔde to dwa mmra a ɔmofrɛ no no.
According to reporting by Al Jazeera, the leader of Hamas has said the group is on the verge of a great victory after its incursion into Israeli territory. Political leader Ismail Haniyeh has blamed the violence squarely on Israel's occupation of Palestinian land. For another Palestinian viewpoint, I wanted to bring in Dr. Mustafa Barghouti. He is a former information minister for the Palestinian government, which is in control of parts of the West Bank but does not control Gaza. Welcome, Minister. I again want to just make sure that viewers understand that the Palestinian Authority has been an opponent of Hamas, so you are not in any way affiliated with Hamas. You represent the Palestinian Authority, which has control over parts of the West Bank. All that said, what is your reaction to what you have seen so far?
Well, first of all, I am not part of the Palestinian Authority. As a matter of fact, I represent a democratic Palestinian movement called Palestinian National Initiative, which is non-Fatah and non-Hamas. And of course, I am not affiliated with Hamas. But I think this situation that has evolved is a direct result of the continuation of the longest occupation in modern history. Israeli occupation of Palestinian land since 1967. This is 56 years of occupation that has transformed into a system of apartheid, a much worse apartheid than what prevailed in South Africa. Yes, maybe Hamas did not recognize Israel, but the PLO did, and the Palestinian Authority did. What did they get? Nothing. Since 2014, the Israeli governments would not even meet with Palestinians. And what you see today is a reaction to several things. First of all, settlers' terrorist attacks on Palestinians in the West Bank that has evicted already 20 communities in an act of ethnic cleansing. 248 Palestinians who were killed by the Israeli army and settlers in the West Bank, including 40 children. Attacks on the holy sites, the Muslim and Christian holy sites by Israeli extremists, as well as declaration of Netanyahu that he will liquidate the Palestinian rights and the Palestinian cause by normalization with Arab countries. And he dared even to go to the United Nations and carried in the United Nations a map of Israel, which included the whole of the West Bank, all of Gaza, all of Jerusalem, as well as the Golan Heights. He declared the annexation of the occupied territories. So of course, Palestinians turned to resistance, because they see that this is the only way for them to get their rights. The question here is not about dehumanizing Palestinians as is happening and calling them terrorists. It's about asking the question, why the United States supports Ukraine in fighting what they call occupation, while here they are supporting the occupier who continues to occupy us.
But let me ask you, if that is the analogy you wish to draw, what Hamas is doing is they're targeting Israeli civilians, women, children, grandmothers.
No, they are not.
Is that not a classic terror? Isn't that classic terrorism? They're not fighting the Israeli government. They're fighting ordinary people.
That's one way of putting it, but it's not true. I think Hamas mainly attacked military establishments, military installations. And most of the people they have arrested and taken as war prisoners are military people. I do not accept attacking any civilian. I do not accept that Israelis attack our civilians, but look at what Israeli planes are doing now in Gaza. They are bombarding houses. They're bringing down to earth, and you've shown that on your screen. Whole apartments, whole buildings, high-rise buildings are brought down to the ground, and we already are receiving reports about families who are killed. 9 people in one family, 10 people in another family, including children. I do not want any civilian to be hurt, neither by Palestinians or by Israelis. But the question is how to end that. Will it end by attacking Gaza Strip another time? Israel has already conducted 5 wars on Gaza. One of them lasted 51 days. They destroyed everything. This did not stop Hamas, did not stop resistance. There is one way to stop any violence, and that is to end the Israeli occupation. And that is for the United States to be fair. They cannot say that Israel has the right to defend itself, but we, the Palestinians, don't have the right to defend ourselves. Let me remind you with the case of Shireen Abu Akleh, who was not only Palestinian, but also an American, a very peaceful journalist. She was shot to death by an Israeli sniper. Was anybody indicted? Was anybody taken to court? No. 52 other journalists were also killed. Our first aid providers are shot at. Our doctors are shot at. This should stop. And the only way to stop it is to tell Israel, you have to respect international law, you have to end this illegal occupation, and accept Palestinians as equal human beings.
Let me ask you about the practical reality of what's going to happen here, which you know because you've lived through this, which is this is going to strengthen right-wing forces in Israel. It is going to strengthen the forces that say, have no mercy, have a huge military response. Presumably the life of Palestinians in the West Bank will get harder, more checkpoints, more searches. Isn't the practical effect here of all this going to be much worse for the average Palestinian?
Unfortunately, Farid, what you have described is exactly what we already have. Today, the whole West Bank is paralyzed by 560 military Israeli checkpoints. And these checkpoints were there during the last 30 years. We are suffering from a wall that is built on our land. The whole West Bank has been divided in 224 small ghettos, separated from each other. And the settlers are everywhere attacking Palestinians. You speak about right-wing government in Israel. Already Israel is a right-wing government. Israel is already having fascists in its government. Smotrich described himself as a fascist homophobe. And that man, Smotrich, who is also a settler, said that Palestinians have one of 3 options only, either to immigrate or accept a life of subjugation to Israelis or die. This is the Israeli Minister of Finance. Netanyahu never negated these statements. And both Smotrich and Ben-Gvir said that their plan is to annex the West Bank. Can we stop what's going on now? Yes, of course. All these Israelis who are now in Gaza can be released tomorrow, including everybody. If there are civilians, also the civilians. Even the generals of the Israeli army can be released if Israel also accepts to release our 5,300 Palestinian prisoners who are in Israeli jails, including 1,260 Palestinians who are in jail without knowing why, under the so-called administrative detention. They don't know why they are arrested. They are not charged. Their lawyers don't know why they are arrested. And that's the life we have. Look, Farid, we have lived all our lives under occupation. My father lived under occupation. My daughter is living under occupation. We want a time when we, the Palestinians, will be free. Hamas was not there 30 years ago or 40 years ago. But before that, PLO was described as terrorist. Any Palestinian who struggles for his right or for freedom is described as terrorist. And the question here, do we have the right to struggle for freedom? Do we have the right to struggle for real democracy? Do we have the right to have normal democratic elections, which unfortunately Israel and the United States don't support? I think we are entitled to that. But the unfortunate thing, if we struggle in a military form, we are terrorists. If we struggle in a non-violent way, we are described as violent. If we even resist with words, we are described as provocators. If you support Palestinian and you are a foreigner, they describe you as anti-Semite. And if you are a Jewish person, and there are many of those, who supports Palestinian cause, they call him self-hating Jew. This should end. It doesn't make sense. We should all have equal life. We should all have peace. We should all have justice. And we should all live in dignity. The main way to achieve that is to end occupation, end the system of apartheid that I am sure no Jewish person can be proud of. Time has come for that, and time has come for justice and freedom. If we achieve that, there will be no violence and nobody will be hurt.
sɛ wotie story ni ya obiara kyerɛ sɛ n'asɛm ɛde obiara kyerɛ sɛ n'asɛm ɛde because sɛ ɔno no hu ne sɛ ɛyɛ Israelfoɔ ana ama saa deɛ wei nyinaa akɔ soɔ Israelisfoɔ nso hu ne sɛ ɛyɛ Palestinefoɔ na akɔ soɔ na yɛmfa video wei ntwa to video wei na ɛbɛkyerɛ wo mu yie paa adekorɔ pɔtenti a sisi ntɔkwa ɛkɔ so no ma declare war against ɛyɛ Palestine ne Hamas ne nkɔfoɔ mo keka saa nkɔfokuo yi nyinaa ho no yɛntie nsɛm a ɛyɛ sogyafoɔ panyini wɔde to dwa ano ayɛ den yɛmfa mpaebɔ ntae ɛyɛ Israel akyi especially Ghana foɔ mo hɔ na atɔyere nkyɛm bi ankwa nkɔto obi wabra ɔmo di ɔmo ntɔkwa ɛkɔ so a ɛnya asɛm ketewa this story ne nyinaa ɛyɛ because of the asase ɛna akɔfa nsɛm wei nyinaa ɛde aba no bidi di Ekuonaba betimi lo comment aba yɛnkotie ɛyɛ soja ni nsɛm a wɔde to dwa ɛyɛ no wa share no wa like page no so.
Shalom everyone, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan here, and we are live in the middle of the night in Israel. I don't know what the time is wherever you are, but we are in the middle of the night. I'm in Tel Aviv, and I'm here to give you a live update on the situation on the ground in Israel. It has been an extremely difficult day. It started with an unprecedented attack into Israel, where Hamas crossed the border. Hundreds of Hamas terrorists got in from Gaza into Israel, and their goal was to kill and abduct as many Israelis as possible. And today, I don't know what you've been watching, if you've seen videos on social media, but I've seen videos that I would rather unsee of Israeli civilians butchered, executed in their homes, of women, children, elderly, and disabled Israeli civilians being dragged into Gaza by Hamas terrorists, and Israeli civilians paraded on the streets by Hamas thugs after they were taken violently from Israel. The numbers today are very, very difficult. We're talking about unprecedented numbers in Israeli history. Never ever before have so many Israeli civilians been killed by terrorists in one single day. There's more than 300 Israeli dead, and there's more than 1,500 Israeli casualties. Many of them, unfortunately, are severely wounded and may succumb to their wounds. Today has been a very difficult day, and unfortunately, I fear that tomorrow will also be an extremely difficult day, because tomorrow the numbers and the names of Israelis killed or wounded or missing and abducted will become apparent. And a giant cloud of grief will descend upon Israel when so many families it will become apparent that their loved ones have been murdered by or wounded by Hamas. There is, unfortunately, sadly, a large amount of Israelis in the hands of Hamas in Gaza. As I'm saying this, I can't believe that I am saying this, but I am saying it. And this is also an unprecedented situation where there are Israeli civilians and military personnel in the hands of a terrorist organization and we are not, unfortunately, talking about one or two. So all of this together, a multi-dimensional attack from Gaza into Israel, with hundreds of Palestinian terrorists that participated in the attack, with extremely difficult results on the ground. And I almost forgot that in the midst of everything, more than 3,000 rockets have also been fired at Israel today. And of course, adding to the wounded and killed in Israel, the civilians getting wounded and killed by Hamas. So when we look back at today, it is an unprecedented attack in its audacity, in its cruelty, and in its results. And since it's an unprecedented attack against Israel, then our response as the IDF will be unprecedented in scope and severity. And we will start to make Hamas pay a price that it has never paid before, because the audacity and the cruelty of their attack against Israel and against Israeli civilians, it's something that we won't let go unpunished. The videos that Hamas has posted today can only be compared to the barbaric images that ISIS, Daesh, and other crazy medieval jihadi outfit of terrorists active a few years ago in the Middle East. You may remember them, ISIS, Daesh. They used to behead people or torch them alive, or send gruesome videos of captives and people getting killed. That's exactly what we are facing today. And the cruelty that our civilians and unfortunately soldiers have faced today is similar to that level of lack of humanity that Hamas is displaying. But they will be punished for it. For those of you watching, I know that there are millions of you around the world who love Israel, who love the IDF, who love the Jewish people, and who support us. And we see that on our official accounts, we see it on social media, we get the messages, we feel the love, and we feel your genuine support for us, for the brave men and women in the security forces who are fighting as we speak, defending Israel. And I can assure you that it is extremely important for us, and I ask you to keep on doing it. Keep on posting, keep active, push back against slander, lies, and half-truths about Israel. And we're just in the first day of this war, and already people are trying to blame it on Israel. And Israel haters and anti-Semites will continue to do so more and more as the war unfolds, and as there are more casualties on the Palestinian side. You'll see people starting to blame Israel for what's happening. But we must all remember how this started. It started with an unprovoked, unprecedented attack by Hamas against our civilians, killing an unprecedented amount of Israelis. That's how it started. And all of the responsibility, it rests squarely on Hamas's shoulders. Israel is defending its sovereignty. Israel is defending its civilians, and it is well within its legal rights to do so. No other country would tolerate such an attack or any attack against its civilians, and Israel shouldn't be forced or questioned to tolerate it. Just like wherever you're living, your government wouldn't tolerate an attack, not even a tenth of the magnitude that we have faced today. So it's very important that whenever you see lies, distortions, fabrications, slander against Israel, and anti-Semitism and BDS disguised as care for Palestinian civilians, and lots of other nonsense, that you stand up to it and that you call out lies and liars and speak up bravely for what's right, for the truth, for Israel, and for the IDF. Before we close, I want to give you an update on what's going on now as we're speaking. It's 3:38 a.m. in Israel. We've had a few hours of quiet in central Israel, where I am now in Tel Aviv, but there is still fighting ongoing in southern Israel. Rockets continue to be fired at Israeli civilians. There was a direct hit at one of our hospitals in Ashkelon, a city in the south. Fortunately, it was evacuated before, so nobody was injured, but there's significant damage to that hospital. And there are still ongoing battles in southern Israel. Unfortunately, we cannot yet say that we have the situation fully in control. And we're going door to door, house to house, making sure that each and every community close to Gaza is cleared of these vile murderers that have infiltrated into Israel, these bloodthirsty terrorists that have come into Israel in order to kill Israeli civilians and abduct them to Gaza. And that's what we're doing now. Once we'll establish that all of the terrorists are either dead or captive, and I assure you, they will all be dead or captive, at the end of that, we will close the border, make sure that there are no further terrorists coming in, not via the sea, not in the air, and not across the fence. And then we will start to strike Hamas and make him start to pay a price for their act of aggression against Israel. The Iron Dome has been performing very well, saving countless lives. More than 3,000 rockets have been fired at Israel, and we have many, many casualties. The numbers are worth reiterating. More than 300 Israelis have been killed, and more than 1,500 have been wounded. But thanks to the Iron Dome, those figures are what they are. They could have been much higher had it not been for the active and excellent interceptions of the Iron Dome. As the sun will rise tomorrow, we will awaken to a new day where Israelis will stand united behind the IDF, behind the security organizations, as we begin to take the battle to Hamas and make them pay for what they've done. It won't be swift. It will take days or weeks or months. But the Israeli cabinet, our government, has ordered the IDF to incapacitate Hamas, to make it impossible for Hamas to rule and govern the Gaza Strip, and to take away all of Hamas's military capabilities. That's what the government of Israel has ordered the IDF, and that is now what the IDF is planning and starting to execute. So what I want to ask all of you, all of our millions of supporters and friends across the world, whether you're Jewish or not Jewish, whether you're Christian, or if you're just someone who is on the good side of things, a lover of freedom, of democracy, and someone who hates terrorists and the darkness that they represent. If you're on the good side, then make your voice heard. Speak up for Israel, speak up for freedom, speak up for defending what's right, and if you see lies, slander, injustices, and nonsense, then speak up against it and fight against it. Share our content. Share content of trusted sources that you see that are sharing true and verified information. And don't let people, Israel haters, get away with slandering Israel and calling us things that we're not. So we're embarking on a long and difficult path. At the end of it, Hamas will not exist as it existed up until today, the 7th of October, and hopefully Israel will restore security to our southern communities and change the security situation in our south once and for good. Please follow our content, stay tuned, stay active, stay informed, and I wish you all the best. I'm Jonathan, and this will not be the last time that we speak. Shalom.